is bad habits. Because here's the thing, we're beyond the point where, where the solutions are evading us, right? It's not as if we don't know how to build wealth, how to fix the racial wealth gap, how to build wealth in Black families. And if you don't know, you will know. Like in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, which I'm going to do this deep dive with you. I didn't want to just write the book. It did well. It became a bestseller, but my goal wasn't just to write a cool book or have people tell me that they bought it. My goal was really to make sure you internalize these basic ideas. And one thing that I think that I've gotten pretty decent at is taking complex ideas and making them simple. So I said, what if we could take complex financial concepts, make them simple, make them so digestible that even a 4-year-old could do it, and then let's say that we mass marketed these ideas to our community on a broad scale. Well, I believe this is going to impact Black family wealth at an absolutely epic level. It's going to be multi-generational. The rules are not complicated. It's not that hard to build wealth in America. It's not that hard to escape the rut, but you got to know what you're doing. It's like maybe it's like if you think about it, if everyone's driving down the same road and everyone's getting stuck in the mud, but there's like another road you could take that's not going to get you stuck in the mud, that's going to get you there faster. It's not that it's hard to get to the destination without being stuck in the mud. That's easy. What's hard is getting people to stop believing the things that they were believing that gets them stuck in the mud every time. Like everyone believes that they have to go down this certain path, and the path is the mud path, the muddy path. So when you go to people and you say, well, there's another road over here. If you take this other road, you're actually going to get there pretty fast. And people don't believe you, or they get mad at you, or whatever. Then it's very difficult to get people to implement the solution. It also requires some degree of faith, because it's risky to try something different. It's risky to do something other than what everybody else is doing. There's something. How many of you have ever heard of a concept called social proof? Has anybody ever heard of that? There's a term called social proof, which basically says that a lot of people tend to follow the crowd. 70% of all people, this is according to studies, 70% of all people follow the crowd, even if they know the crowd is wrong. Even if the crowd is wrong, 70% of all people follow the crowd. For Black people, that number is probably 80 or 90%. And the reason that is higher for us is because we are stripped of our identity. We don't really know who we are. So, because you don't know who you are, you're at risk of kind of just going whichever way the wind is blowing, right? Whatever is going to help you fit in. It's almost like my friend. My friend was an orphan growing up, and she wasn't. Her parents unfortunately were not there for her, so she would end up living house to house. And I was talking to her about it one time, and I said, so when you were living house to house, what did that change about your personality? And she said, I learned how to be a chameleon. She said, I learned how to fit in with whatever was going on inside the house. I would find out what they needed and I would try to be as helpful as I could be. And I lost my identity in the sense that it's hard for me to advocate for myself because growing up, I knew I had to fit in or I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't have a place to stay that night. So part of my survival was fitting in. So I think that for Black people, because we are economic orphans, because we are orphaned by our families, we have no capital base, we don't have any generational wealth in many cases. We become these economic orphans that are kind of going from house to house. Instead of house to house, you're going from company to company, job to job, and on every company and every job, there's a different culture, and you're fitting in with that culture for your very survival. Well, what are the consequences if you don't fit in? Well, you're gonna not have a place to live. You're going to lose that income. You're going to suddenly be thrust into financial anxiety because you're not able to pay the bills anymore. So, really understanding these dynamics and how they work is something that I want you to really internalize. And this is something I talk extensively about in the book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And what we're going to do in the process of this training is I literally made 120 slides from this book, and I'm going to explain every concept in deep detail, and these are ideas that you're not going to find in any other book. There is no other book that I've ever seen written in this particular way, because basically in the Black Business School, all we focus on is Black wealth, Black families, Black people. That's it. We don't hate anybody else. I don't walk around saying I don't like white folks. I don't do all that silly stuff. But I just care about my community. I care about my people. Because my narrative was that I did what you did. I took the same path. I had the same beliefs. I was raised in the same way. I was brought up in a house where everybody got a job. There was no wealth. I had a rich dad, poor dad experience in the sense that I saw my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family, and I saw the difference in their economic outcomes. I saw on one side where my father's family was they were kind of bougie in the sense they were always kind of the ones who they were the ones who would sort of be like maybe like the first black people to move into a white neighborhood, things like that. And they were light skinned, and growing up, that light skin dark skin thing is very real, right? Light skinned people, unfortunately in some cases will be trained to kind of look down on people that are darker, and this is an artifact of white supremacy, right? They would sort out black people based on your skin tone, how close you were to whiteness. That's why I believe that Barack Obama never would have been elected if he looked like Wesley Snipes. I don't think that a Wesley Snipes looking Barack Obama would be accepted as president of the United States. But maybe I'm being cynical, but that's what I believe. And so anyway, on my bougie side of the family, I just, it was interesting. They had a two-parent household. It was a mother and a father in the house, and they had lots of nice stuff. Like in the 1960s, they had a camcorder and they recorded like stuff from when my father was a little kid, and that was very rare for anybody, especially black people. But what I also noticed was they seemed to have a lot of financial problems. There was a lot of economic stress, a lot of financial anxiety, a lot of setbacks. And I didn't understand that, right? Because you're living this nice life. And then on my mother's side of the family, that was the family where you have the single mother, my grandmother, Felicia. Our panther is named after my grandmother. If you've been following us, you know that panther's name is Felicia. I bring my grandmother with me wherever I go, and that gives me strength and confidence. And so there was my grandmother raising four kids all by herself. She got divorced when she was 19, got married at 15, got divorced at 19, never got remarried, never made more than $22,000 a year, but never had a financial problem that I was aware of. I never saw her calling the house borrowing money. I never saw her doing things that were financially desperate. I never saw her struggling. And a lot of it was because of mindset. She just had a different mindset when it came to her money, when it came to wealth preservation, when it came to financial conservatism. And this was my first exposure to the idea that mindset is massive when it comes to where you are economically. In fact, one area of mindset that just drives me insane is when there are just literally people who believe that it's impossible for black people to have any wealth. They just think it's not possible. Like somehow we're magically unhuman, that we're not even human enough that if we make the right decisions and we put ourselves in the right place, that good things can happen. And I think this is designed to keep us very vulnerable to the people who come in and claim to be our superheroes. They claim to have the solution, because obviously you people can't come up with a solution on your own. So let us solve it for you. Here, vote for this guy or come work for this guy over here, and that's going to make things better. And we know that these things do not work. Okay. So a lot of these false beliefs that we grow up with affect us through life, and it causes us to go down the same traps as everyone else and into the same economic rut. And because I thought about these things extensively, I see it as clear as day. So my goal in this 30 days, we're going to meet 7 days a week, every morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. My goal is to, over these next 30 days, to literally make you an economic ninja. Like I'm literally going to give you the secret sauce in terms of understanding exactly what's going on with Black family wealth, exactly what I think the solutions and remedies are. And then when you walk out of here, you'll literally be prepared to go and teach other people this stuff. And also, I want you guys to remember this too. If you signed up for this class, you can bring your whole family. Like we don't care. We're not, I mean, don't get me wrong. We need money. The Black Business School needs money because if you're building a Black owned institution, you can't do that for free. So we have to ask you to pay for things. But if you compare what you're paying for here compared to what you paid to go to college, there's no comparison. Also, if you compare the value of what you're getting here versus what you got in college, there's no comparison. So our goal is to give you 10 times more value at 1/100th of the price. and that's the best deal we can make for you, right? Because it has to become an ecosystem, right? So I hope that this makes sense. Let me know. Give me a yes if you follow what I'm saying and you understand why I gave that long-winded soliloquy introduction to this. I want you to understand the context and the narrative behind what we're doing. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some slides and we're going to get started here. And and let's see here. All right. So you know what? And I see what you're saying, B Durham, about the flash sale and stuff like that. What we can do is if you saw the flash sale and you want to get a lower rate or something like that, email support at theblackbusinessschool.com and they'll give you some credit. They'll give you something free to make up for the difference. So just email support at theblackbusinessschool.com because the flash sometimes we'll do flash sales just to go ahead and stimulate to get the class ready or whatever. It'll be like the first 100 people or whatever. So if you saw that and you want to participate, we'll work with you, right? So just let the team know what we can do to make it right. And we can't offer the same price all the time everywhere. It's like getting a plane ticket, right? If you're in the right place at the right time, the price might be a little different. But generally speaking, we drop the price significantly for those of you that wanted to join early. After this is done, it's pretty much locked. Like there's not any opportunity for people to join other than paying $7.99, right, which is the full price to get access to the material. The other benefit is that you get to keep everything for life. It's yours. You can share it with your family, whatever the case may be. And so anyway, let's hop in. Let's start doing our dive here. All right. So and then also one thing I want to mention to you also is that another benefit, in addition to being in the Zoom where you can ask me questions and things like that, is there is a community on B1 Nation. We're going to open up a special space just for students where you can connect, collaborate, talk it out, things like that. So I'll let you guys know about that very, very soon. All right. So, and if you want more information about any of this or you're curious about any of this other stuff we have going on, my website, boycewatkins.com, has a lot of information. And if you haven't, text the word morning, MORNING, text the word morning to 87948, and I'll send you some more information that way. Text morning. So pull out your phone and do it right now if you can. Text the word morning to 87948, and I'll send you more information as we go on. All right, so let's get started here. Let's begin our journey. All right, so I'm super excited. I really feel good about this book and the concepts in it. I truly believe to the core of my soul that this will change you, and I applaud you for being here. I congratulate you for being smart enough, to look for the solutions that are going to benefit your family. And what I want to do is I want you to have one measure, um, one measure of success for this class. When we're done, it remind me to ask you this question. I'm gonna try to remind myself. Sometimes I forget, but this is to me the question that I'm asking myself as I do this with you. When we're done, I'm gonna ask you, do you think that you have enough information to change the wealth trajectory for your family for the next 100 years? That's going to be the question, right? That's the question. That's the goal. That's the objective. Literally, that's how powerful this is. Um, I have no doubt in my mind that there are some very simple things you can do that will change everything. That means no more economic stress, no more significant financial anxiety, no more, like strugglenomics, no more, having to go work for white people in order to survive. Literally none of that. And I'm not, I know I say white people and people get nervous when I say that sometimes, but I'm sorry. I can't hold back on that, right? Because there's so much pain that comes with that. So literally is no more pain. Like I want us to literally be done with this. So when we're done, that's what I'm going to ask you. Like, do you feel that you have enough here? Yeah, remember when you sign up and you get into the class and you get the material where the recordings are and all that, that's yours for life. So you can share this with anybody in your family. They can go through the training just like you do. I believe I wrote this book with the goal of kind of thinking if I could have one thing I could be trained on, as say if I was 20 years old again, is there something I could set up where if I went through that, I would be set for life? Like I would be good economically in terms of my understanding of how economics works, what my goals should be, where my priorities should be. And that's what this is. That's why I called it the Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power. That's kind of an audacious title, but man, do I believe in it. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's get started here. All right. So first thing I wanted to show you all is that we are building a rocket ship to Mars, and I compare it to that because I really want to take you places that we haven't been. I want our people going places that we don't believe that we can go to, places that our ancestors would have dreamed of, and so really that's what the goal is. The goal is to introduce you to some ideas that are going to be a little bit strange and different, but I know that these things work because as you go through all the complexities of economics and how wealth works, the beauty is that you can actually reduce it to very simple things that you can do that make a massive difference. That's what I like to look at. All right. So one thing I want to point out here is that once you're done with this training, what's going to happen is you're going to be kind of a guiding light for people who are still lost. You're going to have a type of energy that's going to either repel certain types of people who just think you're being obnoxious, or you're going to attract attention from people who are going to take notice of your understanding of how these things work. And they're also, and then when you implement these ideas and you start to have economic success and your family does, people will start to follow you. That was my trajectory in my life when I first started doing what I was doing. My first weirdo experience that I can reflect on now is when I started my PhD program and I was 24, 25, 26, 27, and I was still in school, right? So I would go to family reunions and it was very awkward, and so people wouldn't be able to think of anything to talk about. So we'd be sitting there, we'd be eating our mashed potatoes or whatever, and then somebody would say, "So you still in school, huh?" And that was very awkward for me. That was very difficult because I was doing something different from anybody else. I was doing the best I knew how, which was I thought that getting a lot of education was the best way for me to actually have some wealth and financial security. So that was my investment that I was making. And so nobody understood it. I felt like the whole world was passing me by. I was watching my friends get jobs and get married and all this other stuff, and here I was still in school. And so in a way, it was I was not the cool kid. Maybe I was the smart kid, but I was also the oddball because I was working hard, but I wasn't. There were no signs of my success sort of cropping up. So then what happened though is that I got that first job at Syracuse, and suddenly I'm making six figures. That was a big deal, right? Nobody in my family is really making that kind of money. And then after that, I started my other part of my career where I started going on national TV and all this other stuff. So then people start noticing, they start paying attention, they start identifying me as this successful person, right? Even though I was always the same guy, but I was developing something in the backdrop, right? So ultimately, people that used to ridicule me started to follow me. Those who thought that I was weird started asking questions. And so what happens is that you kind of become your. Why is that? Well, because my sphere of energy and influence was growing as my success rate was growing, as I was becoming more of who I believe God maybe intended for me to be. The same people who ignored or ridiculed, started to admire and brag to their friends that they knew me, right? And I took no offense to that. That's what it was. Even when I was at Syracuse, the very same professors who stayed away from me because they thought I would get them in trouble with white people are literally the same people who brag to their students now that they know me. They say, "Oh wow, you know Dr. Boyce Watkins, right?" And it's okay. I don't have any ill will about it. It's just an observation. So what happens though, generally speaking, in my view, is that when you start to really know who you are and you lay out a plan, and your plan is different, and you execute the plan, and the plan starts working, and the plan starts to manifest in various ways. It might show up in the form of money or whatever it is, or influence or whatever. You get your radius grows, your gravitational pull starts to grow. You go from being a planet that revolves around the sun to becoming the sun, that where the planets revolve around you, and then maybe you even become a supermassive sun or a black hole where everything's revolving around you, right? And that's just how it works. And the thing about being the sun is, and that's what I want you to be, is that the sun isn't following the planets. The planets revolve around the sun, but the sun does not revolve around the planets. So people might talk about me, but I'm not interested in talking about people that are talking about me because I'm just doing what the sun is supposed to do. I believe the sun is supposed to shine, and I believe that when you become successful, some of you are already there, some of you are on your way. When you get there, I really want to encourage you, just shine. And when you shine and when you succeed, then other things will start to revolve around you the same way the planets revolve around the sun. And so what happened was when I was sitting in my office in Syracuse. And I was working on this stuff that at first it was being kind of ridiculed. The professors were all scared of me because they thought I'd get them in trouble with white people. So they kind of disassociated. I started to grow in terms of strength and influence. And then next thing you know, and I wasn't looking to connect with anybody in terms of telling people what I was doing. I wasn't looking to try to get people to take notice. No, I was just doing my thing. And then next thing you know, I would start getting these phone calls from people. You know, first it was Wendy Williams, then it would be like an Al Sharpton, then it would be Tyler Perry, then it'd be all these people. And why was that? Well, because as I was really living in my purpose, people were noticing that, right? People were picking up on that, right? And again, not that I'm better than anybody, I wasn't, but I was very, very focused on my purpose. And I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm not going to try to fit into anything or anything anywhere. I'm going to fit into except for my purpose. I'm going to figure out what God wants me to do, the best version of myself that I can possibly be. And I'm going to learn to love that guy and be that guy and be that to the fullest and not apologize and not deflect on any level, right? So a lot of you are going to do something similar. A lot of you are already doing that, and so I thought that a really interesting way to kind of observe this would be to think about it like the way planets revolve around the sun, right? So a lot of people think that the planets revolve around the sun and that the sun is stationary. But actually, Neil deGrasse Tyson showed a great diagram, and I'm going to just play this out for you so you can actually see the difference in terms of what the sun is actually doing. So watch this. So do you see that? And I'm gonna play this again so we can internalize this and understand this. So when you and all of us, all of you have a sphere of influence. All of you have something, some circle, some space that you're influencing. Your children, for example, that they're a wonderful asset. They look at you like a god until you tell them otherwise. They look up to you, in unbelievable ways, right? And the power, that power that you have, whether it's feminine or masculine, is the power to shape generations, right? If you see a father that doesn't do his job and is a terrible person, he can traumatize the family for two, three generations down. Or if you are an uplifting kind of man or uplifting kind of woman, you can impact in a massive way because you're going to affect not just the kids and people around you, you're going to affect how they engage with the world, right? So when I'm talking to you, I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to the people that you're going to be talking to. I'm literally seeking to have maximum impact on you because I know that if I have maximum impact on you, you're going to go and then take that impact to other people. So I'm not just looking at the people that are listening to me, I'm looking at the people that are listening to the people that will be listening to me. Do you understand? And the other thing about this image that's really powerful to me is that even though we understand how the planets revolve around the sun is not stationary. So when people start to revolve around that energy that you're going to create by being the most astute in your family when it comes to wealth, you're going to be the black wealth leader in your family because you're exposed to these powerful ideas. You're on a journey too. You're growing too. You're on the move too. So what happens is that as you're growing and you're evolving and you're on that move, you have to think about that because other people that believe in you, that are connected to you, they're going to be on the same journey with you. So when the sun is going all throughout the Milky Way galaxy, the planets are traveling right along with it. Right. So like as I'm going on my journey, right, I spend time with my therapist. I spend time in meditation. I'm reading and consuming information. I'm reflecting on ideas. Every single year, the way I lay out ideas is different from the way I did the year before. I've had a PhD for about 22 years now, and I knew a lot even when I got my PhD. But every year I gain more insight into this, right? And I come back and I say, I used to think of it like this, but now I think of it like that, right? So as people are kind of paying attention, and I think I'm technically like a social, like I guess technically I'm a financial influencer, that's what they call it, right? So those who are influenced by me, as I'm going on the journey, they're going on the journey with me, right? Just like as you're going on your journey, others will go on the journey with you, and you have to keep on going, right? The sun should not be stationary. So I don't want you to be stationary. I want you to see this as a growing process. Education and knowledge never stops. There's never a finish line. There's never a point where you say, I'm fully educated. That does not exist. So you got to stay on that journey. So let's look at it one more time. Okay. All right. So let's move on now. Let's jump in. All right. So I want you to understand that power of orbital energy. Now, one thing I want us to kind of think about in terms of what we're fighting against is we're fighting against this this very sad idea that black people generally are prepped for slavery from birth. And if you've heard me talk about this, you know where I'm going with this. There are so many systems in place that are designed to extract value from you and wealth from you when you're born. This is the reason why you have people that have been working 30, 40, or 50 years, and they have a net worth that is lower than that of a newborn baby. There are babies being born today that have a higher net worth than a lot of people who've been working for 30 or 40 years in their life. Thanks to Julian Gordon. He's the guy who actually shared that idea on the stage, and I thought it was absolutely on point, and I agree with him 100%. So most black people are kind of prepped for different kinds of slavery, psychological slavery, corporate slavery, maybe the prison industrial complex, things like that. All of these forms of slavery and control are designed through capitalist systems to extract wealth from you. That's why you can exert all so much energy and still have no wealth, and you don't understand that. You say, "Wait a minute, I thought working hard was going to help me become wealthy." And it doesn't. Hard work alone does not do it. Okay. So the educational system that prepares you for things like student loans and all these other problems. Sometimes it prepares you for prison, the prison industrial complex, or the school to prison pipeline. The educational system also prepares you for the corporate plantation. So the whole every stage of the way, you're being extracted. Something's being extracted from you. Just yesterday in our Powernomics training, which we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join us, by the way, text the word greatness to 87948, and I'll send you a link to join us in Powernomics training. Just text the word greatness to 87948. We're reading all of Dr. Claude Anderson's books, and after we get done with those books, we're going to start reading some other books. And so anyway, the educational system. We were talking yesterday about Chicago public schools and how much of a racket it is, how much corruption there is, and this brother named Abdul Muhammad. He was an outstanding principal. He's like teacher of the year and everything else, and he was really impacting the black students. Well, it sounds to me, based on what the brother was saying, that there were white faculty that conspired to get him out of the system. They got rid of him. And you say, well, why would they get rid of a guy who's teacher of the year, who's able to get gang members from different gangs to come and sit in the same room? White women can't do that. White women from the suburbs can't do that. And so he talked extensively about certain areas where there was corruption going on. Chicago is known as a very corrupt city, and there were people that were getting paid for work that they were not doing. Taking money from the football game and putting it in their personal bank account. Things like that. And so basically, there are people who have these systems that allow them to make money. That's my point. Right. And one of those systems is the failing public school system. Like, why in the world does it make sense to pay a teachers union or to pay teachers or educators or administrators to not educate black kids? Why does it if the educational system in America, the public school system, were viewed like a corporation, it would be a bankrupt company because you're failing. You're failing every generation. You're failing every year. It doesn't make sense that you're being paid billions of dollars to not educate black kids, but it's okay because they're black kids, and the goal is not really to educate them because then they would become too empowered to fit into the system. They would actually want to do things for themselves and for each other, and not for the corporation, not for these institutions that existed before they were born. So that was one example. The public school system is one example where money gets made. Then you go off to college and they put you in debt. The universities have made trillions of dollars, putting people in massive amounts of debt. Student loans are the number one driver of the decline in black wealth that exists because you're taking the best and brightest and you're putting them so deep in debt that they have to serve the corporate plantation until they die. Also, if you're not prepared for college, then they've got something else called prison, which is another type of college, for you to go to. And there are lots of corporations that make billions of dollars from prison labor. And then if you're kind of in the middle, or you got the student loans and you didn't go to prison, then you're going to go to the corporate plantation, which is where you're supposed to work off your debt, but you never actually work off your debt. You end up dying in debt and dying at your desk, and then they replace you in a week with somebody else so they can work them to death too. So effectively, you end up abused, miseducated, and also undereducated. So you either are traumatized from the mistreatment, You're highly educated in all the wrong things. You're educated in all the things that are not going to add value to your life, or you're undereducated in the areas that you need to be skilled in, the things that are actually going to build a community. You have no ability to do those things, right? Because you think about it, to build something, you need builders, right? To develop businesses, you need entrepreneurs. How many HBCUs are really producing, thousands of entrepreneurs every year? Even HBCUs, they're not doing it. They're producing employees. Why? Well, because if you look at the origin of the HBCU, well, they were designed, so that white people would be able to get black employees. That's why that's what they were created for. They weren't created to develop all these people who are going to elevate the black community, right? That's why HBCUs can't really fund themselves. They depend on donors, white donors, wealthy white donors to pay the bills because they can't pay their own bills because they're not producing the kinds of entrepreneurs that can write a $50 million check or a $100 million check or a $1 billion check. They don't have that, right? So let's keep going here. Right, so here, the media is another institution that is designed to make money from you. It breeds a lot of false symbols of success. A lot of our young people are trapped into idolizing rappers and rappers and comedians and what else? What's the other area? Rappers, comedians, athletes, things like that. And all these are false symbols of success. It's very rare that hip hop produces men that are going to make adequate husbands and fathers and leaders and heads of households. So things like hip hop that we think are blessings to the black community are actually massive curses to the black community. Hip hop has done absolutely nothing, unfortunately, for the development of black commerce and black industry ownership. It's done very little for the strengthening of the black family because you have men that were paid lots of money to disrespect black women and to throw their lives away and to promote drug use, which is destroying lots of young people. It leads to an addiction. Media can lead to an addiction to consumerism. Most Americans are addicted to spending money. One of the things that economists talk about consistently is how they are absolutely floored and flabbergasted by the amount of money that consumers are spending. They're shocked by what they call the resilience of the American consumer. And what they're basically saying is that it's shocking that people are so brainwashed that they will keep spending money even if they don't have it. They'll go in debt to keep up their spending habit, which is no different from a drug addict who will max out the credit card to buy more crack. So this is one of the things. Capitalism feeds on consumerism. Americans are the biggest consumers. That's why, economically speaking, America's economy is head and shoulders above the rest of the world because we spend money like crazy. Right. Also, media creates a culture of black victimhood. In many cases, it's interesting to me that it's very hard to get our folks rallied around issues that are going to prevent a problem or strengthen our community. But it's very easy to get people rallied around the narrative that we are persistent victims of white people, that we can't control our own destiny. Tyrone got shot by the police, and no one, really says much more than that. That look at what they're doing to us and all that. And I get all that, but at the same time, this narrative of black victimhood makes you virtually incapable of solving your own problems or controlling your own destiny. So a lot of black men die younger than everybody else, largely because you have a lot of men that are what could be called suicidal. And suicidal meaning that they're not actually killing themselves directly, but they're killing themselves through bad habits, drinking, sexual irresponsibility, drugs, whatever, right? Or just bad choices, risky choices. All right. So the student loan trap is an interesting trap to kind of dissect because student loans basically are, in my view, the number the number one reason that black wealth is not going up. Black wealth is not going up because of half of all black college graduates end up defaulting on their student loans. Once you default on your student loans, you're kind of out of the wealth game for the most part. At least you're knocked out of bounds. You have to get back in the game somehow. It's much harder for you, and so what's going on is that the very people that you think are going to get you out of the crisis, the ones that you think are going to close the racial wealth gap, are actually expanding the racial wealth gap. They're expanding the racial wealth gap because they're running 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. See, you think they're running fast is the solution, but you have to also run fast accurately. You have to run to the right target. So you're running 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. So you get so much debt that you die with a negative net worth. then what was all that college for? What was all that hard work for? What was all those years of you being the proud of your family for? If your net worth is negative. And so what has to happen is that we have to dissect this and really understand what the correct pathway is for you to achieve the goal, which is to have a positive net worth before you die, so your children are in a better position than you were. So many of them will die in debt. And the only solution for many college graduates is to get a job on the corporate plantation because they don't have skills to do anything else. A lot of most Black college graduates, including those who go to business schools, don't know anything about how to start a business. They don't know anything about how to sell a product to a customer. They don't know anything about how to actually develop infrastructure to build a community. In fact, if you gave me, if I had to build a community, you would do better by having a group of plumbers, carpenters, electricians, and HVAC people than you would by having a bunch of college graduates. A bunch of college graduates do not know how to build anything most of the time. They don't. They just know how to operate in something that's already built. So if I'm thinking about this, right? So if you process Black economics almost like moving to a new town and starting a new town, you don't need people in that town who are going to be looking for jobs because there are no jobs. You don't want them looking for fast food restaurants because there are no restaurants. You need people that know how to grow their own food. You need people that know how to build a building. You need people that know how to start an institution. So what we need is we need a generation of builders. If we really want to escape this whole racism, white supremacy thing, we must be expertly good at developing institutions so that we can then have spaces that allow us to have shelter away from the racism that exists within pre-built institutions in America. So you kind of boxed in. Right? So you get this college degree, you have leveraged yourself in the system. You are heavily dependent on the very same people that enslaved you. And then you wake up one day and you look around and you say, damn, my life is miserable. Man, I'm stressed out. Man, I'm scared to death. Oh my God, look at what these people are doing to me. They're mistreating me on my job, right? Think about this. Look at how much conversation there is about Black microaggression and all these things that we go through on the job. The number one form of racism for Black people, in my opinion, is not, the chance of being shot by the police. That happens, but most of you haven't even had a gun pulled out on you by a cop in the last 5 years, right? But a lot of you have had to get up and go to work every day for a racist SOB who was mistreating you every single day, or a bunch of coworkers who were aggressive toward you, or whatever, unfair toward you, right? That's the number one source of racism in America. It's the job. It's not these other things that we see highlighted on CNN. So let's move forward here. All right. So we talked about student loan debt trap. Here's another part of the culture that has to be addressed. The job seeker renter consumer culture. If you ever want to struggle in a capitalist society, if you ever want to end up at the bottom of the barrel, then here's what you do. You become a person who is dependent on the job to make your income. You go rent you a really nice expensive apartment and keep paying your rent consistently for 30 years. And also you whenever you get a check, you go spend it at the mall. And these are things that are ingrained in you at birth because you grow up around people who tell you that if you want money, go get a job. If you want to get a nice place to live, go rent you an apartment. And then also if you get some money, go spend it. That's what you're told. That's what you're presented with consistently until someone like me maybe comes along and says, well, actually, instead of just seeking jobs, you actually may want to develop businesses. Instead of renting all the time, you may want to become an owner. Instead of being a consumer, you may actually want to be a producer. In a capitalist society, the producers, the owners, and the bosses have the power. They're the ones who accumulate the wealth. The renters, job seekers, and consumers are people who just simply get the flow of wealth. They get the flow of the money. They make the money from the job just so they can give it right back to the landlord or spend it at the mall. Right. So effectively, when you're talking about this, what happens is that you are extracted almost like a cow where they're extracting the milk from the cow, or a chicken where they're extracting the eggs from the chicken. So you go to the corporate plantation and you work your butt off, and the benefits of your labor go to the plantation. They're stacking this money, right? They understand what it means to accumulate capital, what it means to make investments, what it means to grow your money. You were never introduced to that, so you're not even thinking at that level. They're on level two. You're on the first floor working like a slave, like a mouse on the treadmill. They're on the second floor counting money. that's coming from the energy, the economic energy that you're producing, and they're storing this energy, which allows them to appear in the world as rich people, and you appear in the world as a person who's living paycheck to paycheck. Also, buying a house for your landlord. So when you're paying rent over a 20 or 30-year period, I can show you. In fact, give me a yes or no. Give me a yes in the chat. How many of you, when you had apartments, you paid your rent on time, or know the experience of going years of paying bills on time? Give me a yes if you pay your car note on time. Give me a yes if you pay your rent on time every month. Give me a yes if you pay your cell phone bill every month consistently. Everybody who's a bill payer and pays on time, put a yes in the chat. Okay, so one thing that what you want to understand is that when you are paying that bill on time, what you're doing is you are doing for someone else exactly what I've been telling you to do for yourself. If you go to a blackwealthmasterplan.com, at blackwealthmasterplan.com, I have something called the $5 a day plan, which basically is very simple, right? You put $35 a week into an S&P 500 index fund, and you do that consistently over time. You accumulate all these massive amounts of wealth to the point where your kids, if you plan ahead, they never have to work for anybody for their whole entire life. Well, when you are making that regular payment, when you're giving that consistent flow of cash to a landlord, that is what they call in finance, they call that an annuity. You are paying an annuity to someone else, and they're taking that annuity money, and they're not tricking it off a lot of times at the mall. What they're doing is they're taking that money and they're investing it. They're putting it in the S&P 500 fund. So if you pay your rent on time to your landlord, remember the $5 day plan is a measly $150 a month. But most of y'all are not paying $150 a month in rent. Like, in fact, if anybody raise your hand if you do pay rent, how many of you pay more than $150 a month? How many of you pay more than $150 a month in rent right now, or have paid that more than that in the past? The answer yes, it's going to be all of you, right? Because if you're paying less than 150, then God bless you, because I don't know how you pull that off. Well, if you're so think about this. We're not paying 150 a month in rent. We're paying like 1,500, right? 10x that. 10x that. So here's I want to do this math trick for you. That's gonna like I think it should blow your mind. I think it should freak you out. I think it should piss you off too. So the $5 a day plan, and we're gonna cover this more in the class, so you can specifically know how to implement it and all that. Um, the $5 a day plan means that if you do $150 a month in an S&P 500 index fund, after 10 years, you have roughly $29,000. After 20 years, you have roughly 102,000. After 30 years, you have roughly $250,000. After 40 years, you have roughly three-quarters of $1 million. Easy plan, straightforward, directly out of poverty. No more poverty after that. Well, 10x that. 10x that. So if you are a person who has paid rent consistently for a decade, of let's say an average of $1,500 a month, you have given somebody else's family, $290,000 approximately in generational wealth, over $250,000. You bought your house. You buy a house for your landlord every 10 years if you're paying rent consistently. Do you follow what I'm saying? Okay, so $290,000 after 10 years. After 20 years, it's over $1 million. Over $1 million. So if you pay rent, pay attention. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? It's a simple idea, but I don't hear people say this enough. I really need you to internalize this. A person who pays rent on time consistently and pays, say, an average of $1,500 a month, which is a lot of people, literally has given $1 million to somebody's generational. They have made somebody else a millionaire. They have made somebody else. And I want you to really think for a minute about how many Black people you know who pay their bills on time. That's what your grandma taught you. A lot of us have parents that taught us to pay our bills on time. So every Black person you know who pays their rent on time and who's done this for 20 years has bought a house for a white person or whoever their landlord is. So don't you dare ever, these crazy people on the internet, don't you dare ever tell me Black people can't build wealth for themselves because they build massive amounts of wealth for other people. If you pay rent on time for 30 years, then you have given $7.5 million. Sorry, scratch that. I said that wrong. Sorry, $2.5 million to somebody else. If you do it for 40 years, it grows to 7.5 million. So if you work the corporate plan, if you go with the Negro plan, the plan they give you at birth, right, on the Negro plan for economic success, where you go get you a job and you pay your rent on time for 40 years, you literally have transferred 7.5 million in generational wealth to somebody else's family. Now, do you understand why I'm so concerned about this? Do you understand why this makes me angry? And I got to go out here, and I don't even. I'm sorry, I'm getting like John Heinrich Clark when he said I'll debate my equals. Others, I'm just going to teach. That's how I feel. I'm not saying that people aren't my equal, right? We're all human beings, but I'm sorry. Some of these people that come to me with this nonsense, I'm sorry, you're not my equal in this area. I'm not saying I know everything, but Lord Jesus, you sound crazy right now. You sound as crazy as I would sound if I was out here trying to do heart surgery and I ain't never been to medical school. I'm not going to go argue with a cardiologist on how to take care of the heart, even if I think that he might be wrong. I might go get a second opinion or something like that, but I'm not going to go in and say, well, no, actually, what you have to do is remove the ventricular nerve, and it's not possible to connect the aerial cavity to the. I'm not going to do that. So I just I don't make the argument anymore. I just make the point. That's it. There are people. There was like this other guy who wasn't trained in finance who was like, I really want to debate you. I want to debate you because I believe this black wealth stuff is garbage. And I said, why are we wasting our energy debating? Like, number one, we're not rappers. We don't have to beef. I understand you want people to pay attention to you, so you're picking a fight. I don't want to beef with you. I'll learn from you. I'll listen to your perspective. But then second of all, what's the point? Like, if you have no solution, then what's the point? If your goal is simply to dismantle ideas that give us possibilities, then what's the point? Really, like it's like I've heard people make arguments about religion, right? And there's arguments out here like that maybe Jesus didn't exist and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that any of that's true one way or the other. I have no idea where you stand when it comes to religion, so I'm not in any way challenging your religious point of view. But I know good people who go to church every Sunday and they get something good from going to church every day. So a person like that, I'm not going to sit here and badger you all day to try to get you to stop believing in Jesus because maybe that's what gets you through the day. Maybe that's what you need in order to convince you to be a good person. Maybe that's what gives you hope. Maybe that's what gives you confidence when you're going through a tough time. So what good is it for me to get you to stop believing in the thing that that adds value to your life? So that was my point to him as I said, why would you what is your goal here in convincing black people that wealth does nothing for the black community, that we shouldn't try to build generational wealth? What do you gain by getting black people to give up and you have nothing to replace that with? If I go into your house and I say your parents are bad parents and I kill your parents and I replace them with nothing, am I really helping you? No, I'm not helping you. Like your mother's a bad person, so I murdered her. No, you don't do that, right? So really I believe in solutions. I think the solutions are clear. They're there. That was one of 10,000 things I could say to you that would make it 100% clear that you got a clear path to building this wealth. All you got to do is take the gun or take the energy that you're exerting and giving out to everyone else and turn it back in. Like it's like if you think about wealth like a heater, right? Because the money let's say the financial security makes you feel warm and you got the heater. We installed the heater in the house in the window, right? Let's say you put it in the window. I know you don't do that with heaters, but let's pretend. But instead of installing it where the heat's coming into the house, you got the heat going out of the house, right? So you're paying your electricity bill and you got that sucker blasting full steam and you got the heat blowing out of the house and you're wondering why the house is freezing cold even though you got the thermostat turned up to 90 and you've been paying your bill on time. You're like, why is my house freezing? So I'm the guy who comes over. You say, Dr. Boyce, the house is freezing and we're paying our electricity bill and I got the thermostat turned way up. I would come in and say, well, it's because your heater. See, the heater's turned this way. It's supposed to be turned that way. So you don't have to make any radical changes. You don't have to get a new house. You don't have to burn the house down. You don't have to turn the heat off. What I'm saying is keep doing exactly what you're doing, but we're going to take this heater and we're going to turn it around. That way, the air that you're blowing outward is going to blow inward. And this is what is going on with black wealth. See, this is where the whole brainwashing and miseducation comes into play. You have been trained to turn the heater outward and you got that sucker blasting. Nobody works harder than black people. I'm sorry. I believe that we work when we really love massa, and when we get that good job, and we really feel like we've been validated, we will bust our butts like nobody else. And what happens is that other people are accruing those benefits. So when you flip it, just like I was explaining to you, if you're already doing that, like that $5 a day plan, you're already doing it. Except you're not doing a $5 a day plan, you're doing a $50 a day plan. You're doing a $25 a day plan, you're doing $100 a day plan. So what I'm saying is just do that for yourself. Do as much for yourself as you do for other people. All right. So the last point I want to make, and then we're going to be done for today. We're going to meet tomorrow morning again at 10 a.m. All right. So the last part here. So I mentioned the benefits of your labor going to the corporate plantation. You're buying your house a landlord, so you're buying a landlord for your house, or you're buying your landlord a house. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry, I'm losing my words. My apologies. And then also, when you buy consumer products, shareholders of these companies get rich. I own a lot of stock. And the thing about owning stock, which I think everybody in our community should own stock, is that you basically are in a situation where when I used to teach finance at Syracuse, one of the first things that we taught the students is that according to Milton Friedman at the University of Chicago, the number one job of the corporate manager was to maximize the wealth of the shareholder. The number one job of the manager of the company is to make as much money as possible for the shareholders. This is a controversial idea, in my opinion, because there's so many other people that are affected by what corporations do. You've got your workers, you've got your consumers, you've got the environment, you got your suppliers. All these other people are affected. But literally, Milton Friedman in Chicago made the argument, and it apparently was successful because it became part of financial theory. Is that the number one job of the corporate manager was to make their shareholders as rich as possible? So the reason you want to be a shareholder and the reason you want your children to own as much stock as possible is because literally by simply taking your extra money and buying those shares of stock, you've got people who are basically worshiping you like you're an economic god. They have committed their lives to the basic idea that their number one goal is to make you as rich as possible. Now, so if you want a simple pathway to building wealth, if you put yourself in a position where you've got all these people that are part of these companies and their number one goal is to make you rich, that seems like a pretty straightforward solution to me. What do you think? Right? I mean, because you're not only working on your own behalf, but you got other people working on your behalf. And that's one of the secrets to capitalism that doesn't get discussed enough, is that a lot of times the people that make the most money in a capitalist society are not the people that work the hardest. It's the people that get others to work hard for them. Now, again, I'm not in any way justifying capitalist systems. I think capitalist systems can be very exploitative. I think they're very problematic. I think, when people say that capitalism is racist, I say, yeah, it probably is. When they say that it mistreats poor people, I say, yes, it absolutely does. But I can also tell you that it is not my goal, nor is it within my skill set or ability level to dismantle American capitalism. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make America not a capitalist society. I only know how to tell you which parts of this system are going to benefit you and which parts of this system are going to screw you. And I just don't want you to be screwed. And by playing that game from the top and understanding how the game works, you can make sure your children are not screwed. You can play powernomics from a position of at least having enough economic self-defense in your life that you're not going to be exploited by the people who have more power than you. And I hope that makes sense. I hope that that's come together for you. Okay. So each day we're gonna do about an hour, or maybe less, 45 minutes to an hour, just like we did before. Because I don't want these sessions to become overwhelming because our goal is to be consistent. So every single morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, we're gonna gather. And every now and then sometimes I'll go live on YouTube a little bit just so other people can see what's going on. But the difference is that I might go live, I might not. I might go live on different channels. Also, those of you that are in the class, your benefit is number one, you're inside the Zoom and you can interact with other students. You can put questions in there. And then number two, I'm going to send a link to you guys very soon where you can join the community and you can connect with other people in the community. And then also what I'll do is I'll share another link here where if you want to go and sign up to get access to the recordings of all this, where you can share this with your family, you can get lifetime access right here. And this is actually the link to the discount. Give me one second here. Let me find that discount code that we use today. And I'll put this in the chat. and you can share this with your relatives or, or use it yourself, whatever you want to do. All right. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope that you gained something from this conversation today. I like to think that we dug into some good stuff, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I think this stuff is so impactful that a person could literally take what we just covered today, and if they applied this in terms of family culture, it will go a long way. So tomorrow we're going to actually hit the first commandment, but I want to lay the framework so we can understand the bigger picture, and we're going to knock it out as of tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. If you haven't done it yet, text the word morning to 87948, and I'll send you some stuff and information and links. And that's morning to 87948, and I'll see